Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 175 of your favourite Formula 1 show. Yes, Knowing Wheel returns this weekend to discuss all of the goings-on from the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, and I'm joined by what's lovingly going to be called Jetlag 183, because despite only being an hour ahead of us, Jamie is adamant he's jet-lagged, but it wasn't his fault.
No, I genuinely had a terrible time in Milan airport last night.
Oh, I think you meant the entire trip.
No, the entire trip was great. It was fantastic. I would recommend going to a Grand Prix. I'm not sure I'd recommend going to Imola.
No.
But my flight back was due to be at 10:30 p.m. Italian time, landing in Manchester at 11:30. I got home at 4 a.m. And I was at work today. So I just woke up from an hour and a half nap, and it's now 5:15 for context. So I'm gonna be chatting absolute rubbish as per usual. Really, I don't know if I remember much from the weekend, but we'll give it a go. And yeah, it was good fun. I did really enjoy it.
Luckily, obviously, we've got our notes for that regard. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Imola's, actually, to be fair, most of the tracks we've both been to, haven't we? We just overlap them oddly. But Imola, yeah, I still feel desperately needs a bit of money thrown at it to kind of like update the venue if it's going to be staying on the F1 calendar longer term. But of course, as we've mentioned for the last few weeks, we're not really convinced that's going to be the case anyway. But yeah, of course, obviously, if you're new around here as well, please do make sure you get yourself subscribed to the channel. We're closing in on 600 subs. So, you know, we're slowly but surely making our way to that 1,000. I mean, we're only 8 episodes away from the big one as well, isn't it, Jamie?
Celebration, Jamie183, episode 183.
We're counting down to that glorious episode. We've got a lot planned for it as well.
I hope you do.
But anyway, Let's move into Imola. Of course, it was a weekend of big upgrades for teams, wasn't it?
Yes.
Obviously, we kind of hyped up that obviously McLaren had brought their big upgrade to Miami, and Oscar Piastri was going to get that this weekend. Ferrari were bringing 7 upgrades. Aston Martin bringing 9 upgrades to Imola, and in true Aston Martin fashion, it didn't work out particularly well for them, did it?
No, Alonso, after crashing an FP3 and hastily repairing, well, he didn't, but the team hastily repaired his Formula 1 car. Yeah, it didn't go great. Straight in Q1, he he's all over the place. He was making mistakes. And he did, no, it was his last lap, wasn't it, that he went off at turn 5 chicane on the exit, and that was that. So, yeah, Alonso P20 was probably not what people maybe expected. But yeah, that put him right in the back row, and then eventually took penalties to start from the pit lane. And yeah, the Aston Martin upgrades didn't really amount to very much. And to be fair to them, saying that they want to aim to be ahead of Alpine, that actually wasn't that far off. So, well, Alonso wasn't ahead of them.
They managed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be mentioned as well, of course, quickly. Sebastian Vettel is Fernando Alonso's worst curse in Formula 1, because Seb has been to 3 Grand Prix since he retired from F1, and Alonso has not scored in a single one of them, I believe, or he certainly hasn't made it out of Q1 in any of them. He has just been an absolute curse for Fernando since he took his seat.
Stealing 2 championships away from Alonso as well back in the day. So,
wow.
Yeah, Alonso
2 championships.
Yeah, 10 and 12.
20. Are you saying 10 is Seb's fault?
Alonso drove the best out of any of the drivers in 2010.
I would say,
or maybe
I mean, I'm not one for hyping up Seb, but I feel like the car was a big. I mean, had he not had all the mechanical issues, he probably would have had
walked
a fairly controlled season. Yeah. But that is a rabbit hole we don't need to go down today. But yeah, Alonso straight out in Q1. Staggeringly, at the other end of the grid, though, Hulkenberg temporarily was fastest, wasn't he? Which that was beautiful.
We got a massive cheer from everyone, including myself. Yeah, it was. I don't know how, because in Q2, Hulk got a slipstream from Verstappen, which later became quite important. But he didn't have a slipstream here. He just, I guess he was one of a few drivers who went out on fresh softs at the end. So Tsunoda didn't, and none of the top guys did. But people like Hamilton did, and yeah, Hulk just put it on pole. Yeah, amazing. I loved it.
I wonder, obviously, if you're the psychology behind it. For if you're in a top team, is of course you don't want to risk it all in Q1. If you're a Hamilton or a Russell or a Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, that kind of thing, you are just more sort of ramping up towards Q3. If you're Hulkenberg, of course, who's already in the drop zone and in a Haas car, you've kind of just got to try and go for it in every single session, haven't you? You've basically just got to be prepared to put it all on the line every time.
Yeah, and that sometimes does give it the odd wild result. So, yeah, sadly for his teammate, who is a bit under pressure at the minute with all the penalty points and bad form, really. Although, he's doing his bit for the team, but he's not particularly driving very well, Kevin Magnussen, this season. He got absolutely screwed over and qualified P19, a second off Hulk, who was on pole in Q1. So, yeah, it wasn't really his fault, this one, because into turn 5, chicane Piastri absolutely got in the way, and immediately everyone who was watching knew that was going to be a penalty. So there was one front runner going for pole who would have been going for pole later, who we just knew was not going to be staying there.
No, exactly. And for those of you wondering, the turn 5 chicane as well is the Gilles Villeneuve chicane that Jamie is referring to. But I mean, yeah, with the exception obviously of Alonso, not really, and obviously, like you said, Magnussen obviously out as well in Q1, which is a lot less of a surprise. It was, your typical other three, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Of the Alfa Romeo, or the Kick-Snake Sauber cars, and Logan Sargent there. Zhou Guanyu maintaining his record of, if you exclude the sprint qualifying in Shanghai, yet to make it out of Q1 this year.
Well, the car's rubbish. And he got Q3 in Shanghai, and that's the only race that matters. So...
What? He didn't get Q3 in Shanghai. He got Q3 in the sprint in Shanghai. And Daniel Ricciardo did the same thing in Miami.
Yeah, I won't take Joe slander. He actually drove quite well in the race. So, have that.
He did, to be fair. There's credit where it's due. Q2, though. We're back, Jamie. Formula One's return to Europe. Often, there's a lot of nostalgia. And Sergio Perez brings all the nostalgia of last year back by ending up P11 in Q2.
Yeah, Perez... once he gets to Europe, just absolutely forgets how to drive. And it wasn't even like he didn't get a lap in, because his first run wasn't particularly good, and then he still had the second go at it, so he went out at the end and just didn't improve, or like barely improved. Couldn't beat it was Lewis Hamilton right in the bubble, wasn't it? Or was it Ricciardo in the end? Yeah. I don't know how this happened, but yeah, P11, while he seemed to step back from Verstappen. He actually didn't. Verstappen was off it all in practice. I was going to say it was step back, but Perez was actually quicker in all of the practice sessions. Verstappen wasn't happy at all with the car. And really, it looked like a fight between the McLarens and Leclerc. And Verstappen was looking at a second row at best. And then got to qualifying, and Perez is out in Q2. And Verstappen obviously comfortably through. So, yeah, weird one, but we'll see if this one lasts for 2 months. This run of Q2 exits.
Well, apparently, this was after the weekend. Helmut Marko said, Red Bull are looking to try and finalise another extension for Sergio, which I think is pretty mad.
He does always get worse as soon as his future's secure. You see that?
Oh, exactly.
And you saw that exacerbated the most
off the throttle
when he won in Sakir, because he had the best race of his career when he didn't have a seat with one race to go.
Exactly. Sergio Perez, he needs to sign his contract after Abu Dhabi, and ideally, if I was Red Bull, I would be looking to try and have his children and wife at gunpoint.
Well, I mean, it's probably
it'd be the only way he delivers.
It wouldn't be the most immoral thing Red Bull have ever done.
So. It wouldn't. No, exactly. But yeah, Perez joined by both Alpines, Albon and Stroll, then out in Q2. So both V-carbs into Q3. They were flying along this weekend, weren't they? Especially in qualifying, which, to be fair, has been the case a lot for them this year. And it seemed like, this track did really suit them as well. And obviously, as we move into Q3, though, Nico Hülkenberg took pole position. Which is a shame it wasn't for himself. He took pole position for Max Verstappen by giving him a slipstream.
I love it. It's so funny. Max was on it the rest of the lap anyway. But it would have been mightily close. Yeah, it would have been crazy close for pole without a 700th slipstream. down towards turn one.
Well, they reckon it was between a tenth and a tenth and a half, don't they? Which would have put Oscar on pole,
Christian Horner
but
said
would
it
have
was
left him pretty much
hundredths, but then he's probably not telling the truth.
Yeah, exactly. The gap to Piastri was exactly 700, so of course he's going to say that.
But Verstappen gave Hulk a toe
10th.
to get into Q3, so Hulk was just repaying the favour. This is what you get when you have friends rather than teammates, because obviously Perez couldn't give him a toe, so Verstappen had to use somebody else. It wasn't planned or anything. It was just like, I imagine Hulk just finished his last lap, and then just saw the Red Bull behind him who towed him into Ravazza as well in his last lap, and was like, yeah, why not? I'm sure if it was an Alpine, he would never have given him a tow, because obviously they're all competitors, and so they have some people they like and some people they don't like. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, fair play at the end of the day, because like you said, Max still did get the lap hooked up, but Piastri and Norris, as well as Charles Leclerc, all right there by the end of the qualifying. Piastri within a tenth of Max then, as McLaren really, looking towards Monaco next weekend. It's not quite the old Barcelona Sector 3, but Sector 3 here again is still very high downforce, isn't it, through the Ravazzas. And McLaren were a good quarter of a second faster in that final sector than Max.
Includes
just get a bit more pace around the rest of the lap.
Which is very
It does, exactly. But yeah, Piastri would line up P2, of course, 3-place grid dropped him down the order. At the head of, obviously, Norris, both Ferraris. Russell, Yuki Tsunoda got the better of Lewis Hamilton by the end of qualifying. Hamilton, he's just not enjoying the car over one lap this season.
I don't think it's really car very much at all.
Well, he's not yet, to be honest.
Yeah.
Ricciardo and Hulk rounding out the top 10. And then, of course, it was time for Grand Prix Sunday, Jamie, which, to be fair, I think people have hyped it up as a good Grand Prix.
It wasn't.
Actually, when you look at it on the face of it, it was pretty dull, and Imola once again hasn't really saved itself, has it?
No. I think, when the race highlights on YouTube includes 2 minutes of the battle for P10 in the pit stops, it's not even a battle, it's the fact it was done in the pit lane. I think that says it all, really. And obviously, I think it's a good race for the season, as in it's a good marker that we will get some real good races this season, because the McLaren is quick. But in itself, it wasn't a good race.
No. I think, bigger picture, we might look back on it with a bit more nostalgia. But I think, looking at it on the face of it, still, it was a bit of a snoozer for the most part, wasn't it? Talk us through the start, though, Jamie.
Yeah,
we will discuss the Grand Prix.
So you had a Max Lando front row, which could have got interesting, and with how hard the track is to pass. For context, all the fans, obviously, we'd watched all the races that went on this weekend, including Ollie Behrman stalling in the pit lane, which is funny.
Damn it.
Still on 8 points, I think, this season.
6 in Formula 2 is 8 in Formula 1.
Oh, fantastic. Every other race includes the F3 2 races, F2 2 races, and the Porsche Super Cup. They were all pretty dead races, and you had to be practically on top of the car in front of you out of Ravazza to even have a chance of going for something into turn 1. So we were saying before the race, whoever's leading out of turn 1 is probably going to win the race. And Lando almost was leading.
When have we ever said that before?
And Lando, got a better start. I was sat on the exit of Ravazza just before the start-finish line, so we could kind of see them launch, but we couldn't see turn 1. Obviously, there's a bit of a bend. It looked like Norris was going to get the lead, but sadly, for his sake, and for maybe the race's entertainment as a whole, Max held it, and there was really no change in the order at all until you got to Tsunoda drop back behind Hulkenberg, and then Ricciardo dropped back, I think, 2 places as well. So, but the top 8 were all as it was, really, weren't they?
Yeah, I think Lewis got the jump on Yuki, didn't he? And Hulk got the jump on both of the V-carbs off the start, which, of course, they're turning into a bit of a battle. It might be quite an interesting one to look at for the rest of the year.
Sadly, the constructors seem to have foregone conclusion, because Hulk's fighting on his own right now, unless Max gets it together.
Hulk is basically fighting with one hand. Basically, Hulkenberg is trying to have a normal fight as Magnussen is just going for kneecaps behind him.
Yeah.
Wherever possible.
I guess if it's a tactic you want to go for, then go for it. But
it's got to be done, I'm sure. But yeah, it was a very, very undramatic start in the end, and it kind of also, the early phases of the race was kind of a little bit ruined by the fact that it seemingly meant that anyone that wasn't inside kind of the top 8 had to box really early, which then meant Alex Albon and Williams, normally a team that's pretty decent at pit stops, completely ruined his afternoon. Not that he was going to amount to much anyway, sadly.
Yeah, he was in around 15th or something, wasn't he? He wasn't doing particularly well. But yeah, well, I still haven't actually seen what this is. Alex Albon was claiming it was a loose wheel or something not right in the pit stop.
It was a loose wheel.
But I'm amazed it didn't fall off in a whole lap.
I mean, it wasn't that loose. It was just more rattling. It was almost like it had been cross-threaded, so it was only slightly out. But you can definitely feel it.
Yeah. So he had to pit again the next lap, which put him a lap behind the entire field. He was running in 20th with Alonso ahead of him, but with a lap down on Alonso for quite a lot of the race. So yeah, basically became a test session. Eventually
just the most boring thing to do in the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah, terrible. But
it's not even like you're in a Red Bull or a McLaren or something like that where you think, I can actually maybe have a bit of a fight back later on. It's just boring because you're spending
where you would have been
laps
anyway if you weren't a lap down.
But a lap down and no chance.
Yeah, sad for him.
I mean, early on it was kind of just every backmarker car pit, and I think pretty much the only thing that happened was that Yuki re-jumped Hulkenberg, didn't he?
Yeah, you had a couple of longer medium runners. So Joe and Sargent were the main ones who went longer. Sargent was running behind Joe, and that kind of screwed everyone over in the midfield. So you had Tsunoda and Hulk, who were the leaders. Hulk went behind Tsunoda, which was the most obvious thing in the world. Why would Haas not cover the undercut? I don't know. Maybe they couldn't do much because
they did cover the undercut.
Well, they covered it a lap later.
A lap later.
They should have just.
What are they gonna do?
They should have just preempted it because it was obvious that Tsunoda was going to undercut.
They should have just read their minds.
Exactly. That's what strategists do, right? It was a shame, but they both got behind Joe and Sargent and took quite a few laps to get past. Both Hulkenberg and Ricciardo made really good moves on Sargent, although old tyres, so doesn't really count.
And Logan Sargent.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that bit.
And they eventually got in ahead of Joe as well. But that kind of almost opened the door for the likes of Stroll and Ocon, who had gone longer on their softs, because obviously Tsunoda Hulk lost time. And certainly Stroll at the very end did come through that entire pack, which I thought was actually quite impressive, just with the tyre delta rather than a difference in compound. And that meant they all shuffled back a place, so only Tsunoda got the point out of the B tier teams in the end. But that was all that I was really watching because, until the last 10 laps, the front was all as it was, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously. I mean, we did have a few other little bits and pieces, but it really was a Grand Prix where not a lot happened. You had Perez obviously making that mistake on lap 17. Hamilton obviously was told to go really long on his mediums, then locked up through Aqua Minerale. So went through a bit of a trip through the gravel. But pretty much, I mean, Oscar Piastri obviously got the jump on Sainz.
Again, very obvious.
But it was
that was going to happen.
It was pretty boring, like we said, and kind of the final 10 laps saved it, didn't it? Because as we get towards the end of the race, Max just had nothing left on his tyres.
Yeah, and he was also, I think, a narrative that isn't being given enough is that he was one warning away from a penalty.
Yes.
So
very early on.
You had at one point about an 8-second gap with 15 laps to go in the race, and it's like, well, this is a foregone conclusion then. Max is winning. And Norris actually focusing more on Leclerc behind him, who was only 1.5 seconds back at one point. So
Ferrari fired up their hards up really fast, didn't they? They seemed to be very good early on the hards.
Yeah, definitely. And it looked like Leclerc the battle to watch was maybe second for Norris defending from Leclerc. And then all of a sudden got into the later part of that stint, and Norris just started driving really quickly, which was a bit weird.
He finally got good, according to JB183.
I don't really know where it come from, though, because the whole stint, Max was either gaining a little bit or just maintaining the gap. And then suddenly Norris just started driving way quicker and was closing in like between half a second and a second a lap towards the end, which is like, where has this come from? And yeah, in the stands we couldn't get team radio or anything, so I just thought Max had an electrical problem or some sort of issue or battery issue that was meaning he was losing a couple of tenths a lap and loss of power or something on the straights. But no, it was pure pace with maybe a slight asterisk of Max was protecting his tyres and one warning away from a penalty, so was driving slightly within his limits. You'd imagine at places like turn 9 and the last 2 corners potentially. But Lando, as I said, even when he was getting closer to DRS in F2, we worked out you had to be within half a second to have a chance of an overtake when the car in front didn't have DRS. So unless it was like he only got DRS with 2 or 3 laps to go, and that was it. I never got my hopes up for a Lando win, putting it that way. The Italians certainly did. They were clapping all over the place.
I mean, you've got to try and cheer him on whilst you're there, haven't you?
Exactly. It was. Hopefully, it won't be looked back on like 2005 is, because it definitely wasn't that.
No, not quite the same. I mean, it was exciting towards the end, though. It felt like for a few laps it was, this could happen. And then it was Lando made one little error, and then suddenly it was like, he just simply hasn't got enough laps now. But it was still exciting, of course.
It was
exciting. As we said, bigger picture, there really now is this belief, isn't there, that maybe we don't have a championship fight on our hands necessarily, but it might be, a bit more like the second half of 2019, where there's, maybe a couple of other teams that get a bit of a look in. Maybe a couple of other teams that have got a chance now to fight, which at the end of the day, when you think about, obviously, the consistency and, still the advantage Red Bull had at the start of the year, I mean, I think there was a fantastic stat, wasn't there, of Max Verstappen's winning margins at each Grand Prix so far this year. And obviously, if you exclude Australia, where he didn't win, and obviously Miami as well, that gap's come down every single race.
Yeah.
He won in Bahrain by 28 seconds. It then went down to like 14 in Jeddah, and has just continued to come down. So, I mean, if someone can lose next week at Monaco, it's Monaco, it might happen. But if someone loses to him at Monaco by less than 0.6 of a second, I will be staggered.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing. I think in the context of the season, it's a good sign because, the McLaren certainly in Lando Norris's hands can fight with Max Verstappen. And really, he would have won had Hulk not got the toe in qualifying, I think. So this is Hulk's first race win, so thank you very much.
It's Hulk's first win, is it? Fair
Max
enough.
would have taken him up there with
him.
him.
Let's be fair, we've got to remember as well, not only was the gap at the front incredibly close, Ferrari, Charles Leclerc was 7 seconds off in the end?
Yeah.
He was on average throughout the entire Grand Prix losing 1/10 a lap.
Yeah.
Ferrari, on a track that suits them, might actually be in this fight as well, which would be glorious.
Yeah, and a track that suits them could easily be Monza, which is fun for them.
We can live in hope. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, Stroll was slowly moving his way towards the end. We did also get the funny little beef, didn't we, between Russell and Mercedes?
I feel a bit for Russell there. I don't know what you think about this. Do you think he has a point?
He'd cooked his tyres. And basically, the team told him, they were like, you're likely going to have to box again. We don't want to risk it. So we may as well try and claim the fastest lap bonus point. But also, let's not forget Suzuka, Jamie, where Lewis was happy to let him by. It was one of those ones, yes, I understand it, but also, you're still part of a team at the end of the day. And Lewis, just, unless you get onto his gearbox again, why would Lewis let you back past?
Yeah, it's true. I don't think they should have let him past. But I think Russell did have a point that, like, these tyres probably will make the end. And, like, by pitting, all they're doing is making him lose to Hamilton. Which, for a teammate, obviously they're a team, but you still want to beat your teammate. And Russell had done a better job all weekend. Yeah, I felt for him. Yeah. But then, as a team, they gained a point, so it doesn't matter at all. And
exactly,
I just thought it was slightly odd. And, understandable that Russell was a bit confused and perplexed by it. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, it was an. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, they got one more point. Than
Yeah,
they
exactly.
will, and I think that's the important bit still, for the team. But I mean, you're kind of also there going sensibly, realistically. Who are Mercedes fighting this year? I very much see a narrative now where they just simply aren't as good as the big three. And Alpine, once again, they're going to let Alonso decide what upgrades to do to the car and completely ruin them. Yes, I'm firing those shots.
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes finishing 7th and 8th, I think, is going to be more common than not this season. Without issues.
So painful.
For the front runners.
So painful. It is so disappointing, isn't it? And I mean, Perez, to be fair, calling it a decent recovery is not enough, to be fair. It doesn't just...
He got ahead of the midfield.
Overselling it. He got ahead of the midfield, didn't he? Especially when you had Alonso out of position as well. He basically beat everyone you absolutely should
in a Red Bull.
Under any circumstances in a Red Bull. But yeah, obviously, like we said, though, it was Max ahead of Lando, Charles ahead of Oscar, Carlos, then both Mercs, Perez, Stroll, and Yuki that rounded out the top 10. So, Jamie183, who is your driver of the day?
Driver of the day. I want to unironically give a shout out to Lance Stroll because I do think he did quite well to get back from P13 up to P9 in that tight midfield.
But he did a Sergio Perez. He beat everyone he should have in that.
But Aston was really trash this weekend. Like Alonso never got.
Was it that bad?
Alonso got passed by lapped Albon when he unlapped himself on Alonso.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not giving it to Stroll. I will instead give it to Max Verstappen because I think that pole lap was pretty special.
Was that pole lap that special, would you say?
I genuinely thought he would qualify 4th before the session. And yeah, he pulled it out.
I guess you just have... I mean, I'm just dull and old and have no kind of magical wonder. I was like, Max will still take pole. It's going to be disappointing, but he'll do
I was fully thinking it was going to be between Lando and Charles. Yeah. So, and it was... The way he celebrated it, you can tell he knew it was a good lap, and it was. So, and he won. He won the race by qualifying on pole because it was so hard to overtake.
Well, I think as well. I have slandered you there, but I honestly, I think it's the first time this season, isn't it? Because we do keep track of these now.
Yes.
But I genuinely agree with you, and you can tell that obviously doesn't happen often. Not that I don't agree with you.
Well, we often agree on driver of the day. We've only gone different once, but Max.
We have, to be fair.
Max hasn't got it yet. So.
No. This is going to be his first driver of the day of the year. But yeah, I think the Saturday lap. It was a good lap. Don't get me wrong. I feel like there could have been more out there, but he got the job done. Helped by that slipstream, absolutely.
Well on Hulk.
But
runner-up and driver of the day.
I think exactly. I think the management though during the race, especially towards the end, because I think he'd had his final warning by like lap 25.
Yeah.
It was before half distance.
Yeah.
And Imola's a horrible track to try and stay in track limits.
And remembering back to our league racing days,
so he did manage it.
Driving when you're one warning away from a penalty is horrible, and he had to do it for like 50
I'd always
laps.
rather get the penalty.
Yeah, I feel like you always drive better when you're on the penalty and you've got 3 more chances.
Exactly. And of course, he did win the Nürburgring 24 on iRacing over the weekend as well, which is just stupid.
I was really hoping that he would ask on the team radio how his team did, but annoyingly,
unfortunately, the race had finished before the actual Grand Prix started.
That's a shame. That is a real shame. I was hoping we'd get such an iconic radio of Max asking how his team got in sim racing.
Yeah, not quite, unfortunately. But I mean, Spa 24, I think, on iRacing is the same weekend as Hungary. So we might see it again. Jamie, I am going to guess you haven't come up with a quiz for me.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't know it was my turn, to be honest. What could I ask you?
Hang on a minute. I did one for you last week about European Grand Prix. How it was always going to be. It's not a difficult system.
All right, I've got one.
It's not a difficult system. Oh, no.
We're going to do it timed as well. This is so off the cuff.
Oh, no.
I don't actually have the answer list, but...
This is going to be a disaster. Oh, why you could have just said no and we would have done it on the Monaco preview.
We're doing it. Okay. This is going to be really hard.
Oh, no.
You've got 90 seconds Name as many Ferrari drivers who have won a Grand Prix as you can, because it was in Italy. Go.
Oh, what? Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Kimi Raikkonen, Felipe Massa, Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, Eddie Irvine, Nigel Mansell, Jean Alesi, early 90s, Alain Prost.
This is going pretty well. I don't even know how many there have been.
Ivan Capelli.
Great.
Jody Scheckter. John Surtees. Mike Hawthorne.
Yeah.
I don't know if he did actually,
to
be fair. He thought so, yeah. What's his name? I'm trying to think of the guy that won his first ever Grand Prix, and it was for them. Like, Bardi or something bizarre.
Van Bardi is not the correct answer. I regret to inform you. 23 seconds, get as many as you can. You're on 17.
Fangio.
Yep.
Yeah. Phil Hill?
I don't know.
I don't think
he
so.
definitely raced for him. I don't think he won.
Ascari.
Oh, he did. Phil Hill's right. There you go.
Lorenzo Bandini.
Let me look.
I think that's right. Lorenzo something like that.
Oh, the time's gone.
Oh,
Bandini did.
I'm happy
You got
with that.
21.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I was going to say, I'm pretty certain Lorenzo Bandini was a real person.
I think the biggest one you missed is probably Niki Lauda.
Oh, yeah. God, yeah. I basically just skipped the 70s.
Vettel?
I got Jody Scheckter. Yeah, I did say Val. Yeah, I got every single Ferrari driver back to the early 90s, I'm pretty certain. With the exception of Gerhard Berger, who I'm pretty certain I missed. But I don't think he actually missed one. I don't think he missed one or won one, sorry. Did he win it? Yeah, surely he won a race
in the
for
90s.
Ferrari. He won 88,
Yeah, he won
1994. The one race... And in 88, didn't he? Because he won the one non-McLaren win that year.
Rennie,
weeks after,
the most latest one you missed, obviously Gerhard Berger, Alboreto, Rennie Arnoux, Tom Bay, Pironi, Gilles Villeneuve.
Oh, there's so many rounds. I should have got Villeneuve.
Reutemann, Lauda, Regazzoni, Ix, Andretti. Yeah, these are quite hard now.
Forget Andretti drove from. Yeah, I did pretty well. I'm happy with that.
Wolfgang von Trips.
Yep.
Tony Brooks, the GOAT. What are you missing him for?
Tony Brooks. Sorry, of course. What are we rating the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, Jamie?
What
I'm
are we
looking
rating
back at the old ratings.
Our ratings vary between 5.5. Sorry, from 5
and 7.5
to 7.5. So it's because 2024 has basically given us the same race on repeat. What is going on?
The most middle of You've got another alarm.
Yeah.
It's given us the most middle of the road races so far, so I'm going to stick exactly with that. I'm going to give it a... I'm going to give it a 6.5, because the end was quite exciting.
I will also give it a 6.5, given that I rated Japan
Fair
as a 6.5 for some reason. It was at least as good as Japan.
I gave it a 7.
What was good about Japan?
What on earth was I thinking there? I can't remember. Why? It's because I slept through most of it. That's probably why I rated it for so while.
Probably more interesting, to be honest.
And I've saved the best bit till last, Jamie.
Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, it's predictions, isn't it? Oh, no.
Oh, it's predictions, ladies and gentlemen. We think for the first time ever. Actually, sorry. Let me compose myself. Jamie, what were the scores coming into this weekend?
What were the scores coming into the race? I was on 31, and you were on 22. So it was 9 difference.
So I needed a big weekend here. We'll talk about Jamie, though, first of all. You said Max, Perez, Piastri.
And you know what?
So you got 4 points for Max Verstappen.
If Piastri didn't block Magnussen in quali, this might have happened.
I don't think Perez would have got P2.
Well, no, not Perez.
To be fair. You could have got 6 points there, but you only got 4 by predicting Max Verstappen.
Yes.
I said Max Verstappen pole plus 2 points. Max Verstappen win plus 2 points. Lando Norris P2 plus 2 points. Charles Leclerc P3! We're trying to think. We don't actually believe we've ever had a perfect score. Ever. In this. But I've done it, and I'm happy. And that means I've closed down the gap to 5 points as well, which is way more manageable.
Absolutely
heading
fair
in
play.
Through the European stretch. Thank you.
Yeah, 4 points gained. I did say on last week's pod just after you made your predictions that that's exactly what I was going to say.
You didn't actually say it was exactly the same.
I did.
You just said you were going to go very similar. No, you didn't, because I went back through the audio set.
Well, in my mind, that's what I said. So I would, yeah.
But, Jamie, you didn't.
That could have happened to us. It could have done.
I'm going to say.
But it didn't. So it's now 35 to 30. So I'm still 5 ahead. So, not too bad.
But as we move to Monaco at the end of this week, I will be ahead leaving Monaco.
We're going to make an overtake at Monaco Grand Prix. Good luck.
We would have mentioned obviously the McLaren Senna livery as well, but we will save that for a Monaco preview.
There's also another bit of big news on
later
Twitter
on in
that
the
has
week.
just dropped since starting recording.
Is there?
Oh
no.
Well, we'll talk about it more on Thursday, but Andretti have signed Pat Simmons.
Oh yes, I did see that before we started.
Big, because he was at the FIA until very recently.
It's a bold call.
I mean, he race fixed once to give Alonso a win from 15th.
He did.
16th, sorry.
16th on the grid to P1. Fantastic. Have we got anything else to mention, though, Jamie? I think we've rattled through everything we wanted to today pretty well.
I want to talk about Imola briefly. For anyone who might go next year before it's dropped forever. It's too small for these cars. It's also too small for the amount of people that watch F1 these days.
Is Imola the circuit too small, or are Formula 1 cars too big?
Well, yes. Either or. But
that's
regardless.
the big problem.
Yeah, also the through roads, like around the paddock, in terms of where you walk, where they were always insanely crowded. I don't know if you found that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Imola
desperately needs a few million quid thrown at it. I think it's the big problem.
Yeah, and then also the train network. The trains were quite nice, but it was like sardines trying to get on. It was crazy. We waited.
Oh, well, that's what you're going to get at any Grand Prix, though,
true.
To be fair.
It's true. I would rather have, camped or... No, I wouldn't, actually. That's terrible. Yeah, I'd have rather been at Silverstone.
Can you camp anywhere at Imola?
I don't think you can. I didn't see any obvious campers.
No, not legally, anyway.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, Imola was really fun. I'm glad I went. It was cool. The Tifosi are really cool.
Yeah.
Although when you're not a Ferrari fan, it's a little bit weird because I was like
No, you've got to just go in rooting for Ferrari.
But I was wearing a Red Bull shirt and low-key clapping Max.
I'm gutted you didn't get beaten up.
Great.
To be honest.
Yeah, so it was like being in the home end in the football match when you're an away fan, which was slightly odd. I want to go back to Austria and then just go mental. So
fair enough. You do that, so you enjoy it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Imola desperately needs a few million quid thrown at it, but like we said, it'll probably get dropped anyway, so it doesn't make much difference.
Next year it's on the calendar, isn't it? But after that, done.
After that, I can't see it renewing again.
Neither.
Anything else, Jamie?
I think that's it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all as always so much for listening. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure you leave a like, drop us a follow, drop us a sub, all that good stuff. Like we said, we'll be back with a Monaco preview either on Thursday or Friday. So looking forward to that one because we've got some big things to talk about there. And staggeringly, for the first time ever, because we recorded this late today, we didn't actually forget them accidentally. We did it on purpose.